Here's what I'm going to do if I'm buying an OCR condo today. Let's go. Recently, I read this article. It says full list of HDB BTO meeting its MOP in 2024 and should you sell right after MOP? And this triggers me to go and check like where are the areas that's going to MOP. And you see Kallang Whampoa, Bukit Batok, Tampines, Sembawang, Geylang. And long story short, what we saw over here amongst the whole list of new BTO MOP houses, right? Most of them belong under the OCR region, which makes sense because government is trying to actually decentralize Singapore, meaning to say that they want to create more jobs and more people work and play and live in the outskirts of Singapore. Which brings me to my point today. What I'll be doing if let's say I'm buying a condo in the OCR area. If you have followed my videos for long enough, you know that my first few properties are all OCR properties. The reason why is because I always feel that there are renewed interest for new homes regardless of price in the OCR area purely because the government constantly is building more things. And you will see that over the years, the OCR prices has gone up quite substantially. And if you ask me today, if I'm going to buy a new condo once again, which area am I going to buy? For those clients that have met me for my consult, you know I always tell you buy OCR first and go for bigger floor plate as much as you can. And yep, I don't need to say much. If I'm going to buy a brand new property, yes, I'm still going for an OCR property. Maybe 2025 I'm going to enter after I settle my renovation cost for this current house already, and that's the area that we're looking at. And today's video is a consolidation of my thoughts, and even though I cannot take action today, I'm going to share with you as an owner, if I'm going to take action, what am I going to do and what is the data to look at. How this video is going to be done is, number one, I'm going to share with you the life stages of a property. Secondly, I'll be sharing with you what's the normal behavior during the different life stage of the property. And last but not least, I'm going to share with you what you should be doing if you're buying in 2024. Now, if you enjoy watching content like this that talks about how you buy property, how you analyze data, and the historical charts, right? Do me a favor by liking this video because it's going to help me a great deal. Thank you so much. For those who are new to this channel, in buying a property, we always want to study the property life cycle of each property to understand when is a suitable time for you to enter the market. In doing so, you need to understand the first thing is a new sale. New sale means developer sell to buyer. Very straightforward and have yet to obtain the CSC. Subsale means to say a non-developer selling to a buyer, and resale means a non-developer selling to a buyer, but this time around it's already met its CSC. I'll link them in the description if you wish to find out more from this article. In terms of property, we always call this the property life cycle. And what I mean by property life cycle means to say that in different stages, it actually behaves differently and largely due to supply and demand. We always know that buying a property is always supply versus demand. So whenever the supply is higher, the price is supposed to be lower, and whenever the demand is higher, means to say the price has to be higher, and vice versa. Over here, right, during the day one launch, usually developers will actually have immense amount of supply, and then the demand will always be a bit lower. And why people say that it's a bit lower as compared to the resale is very straightforward, because today, if you track back the latest number of transaction volume in the market, right, the resale transaction is at least 3 to 4 times higher than the new launch transaction. The reason is very simple, because the price is lower when it comes to a resale property. And during this period of time, developer will usually have a lot of supply. Now, basically for property life cycle, there are always a few phases. Number one is during the new launch phase, post-launch phase, TOP phase, and then the resale phase. Let's talk about the new launch phase. When a developer buys a plot of land, there's always what we call a break-even price, which is able to be searched online, and they need to sell 30% before the bank is able to grant them their construction loan. Having known that, right, we will use Lake Garden Residences as an example, a development that the developer actually bought with a break-even price of slightly above $2,000 per square foot. So for easy calculation, we will use $2,000 per square foot. And knowing that the developer needs to sell 30% in order to qualify for the construction loan, we know that the developer always have a minimum 30% sales target. That means to sell 30% of the units during the launch so that they can proceed with the development as soon as possible. In this case, developer actually decided to launch, let's say for a launch price at $2,100 per square foot, which equates to a 5% profit, a marginal one. During launch day, we sell about 20 over units, and developer start to look around and see what are the transactions happening around the area. And along the way, we realized that there are other developments that launch after us that can go up to $2,400, $2,500, $2,600 per square foot, and in usual cases, developer will start to increase prices to take profit. But for Lake Garden Residences, developer chose to actually price it sensitively, and units start to move at between $2,100 to $2,200 per square foot. So let's stop to check So for the people that bought during the day one launch, for example, if they actually bought the unit at $2,100 per square foot, and currently the median price is at $2,200 per square foot, this is what we always tell our clients is what we call a paper gain of how much? Of $100 per square foot. That means buying in at the median price of $2,100 per square foot, and today the development is already selling at $2,200 per square foot, you actually start to enjoy gains on your property even without collecting your keys. And during this phase, right, of course it may be subjective because sometimes developers, if they chose to launch at a much higher price at the beginning, they may eventually have to cut down on their pricing as well. It's always good to study what's the break-even price of the developer, because if the developer is selling the property at about break-even cost, actually it leaves them no room for them to reduce. Secondly, also if let's say developer launch at a price of $2,200 per square foot and they chose to reduce the price, it may upset the people that bought during day one at $2,200 per square foot if they know that the next buyer bought at $2,100 per square foot. It's unlikely for developers to reduce price, but it's not saying that it will never happen. In order to prevent that from happening, look at the estimated break-even price versus the entry price. If there's not much margin for you to play around, most likely you are entering at quite a safe price. And at this phase, right, after the post-launch, the next will be the TOP phase. That means everybody collects their keys. But the difference between TOP and CSC means to say that the developer still has defects to complete before they can obtain the CSC. So typically it's about 1 to 1.5 years. So during TOP is where the main showdown is. Why? Because today, ask yourself this question. If you bought your property at post-launch $2,200 per square foot, and today a buyer comes in to tell you that let me pay you $2,100 per square foot, will you sell? The answer is an absolute no, because today you bought it for own stay. If you're not going to make any profit, why do you want to sell? So how about if I offer you $2,300 per square foot, will you sell? The answer is no, because your stamp duty is already 5%. If you sell at $2,300 per square foot, you're not making any profit. So typically for those that are new to this, right, usually what our owners will be aiming for is a 20% profit margin, because 20% minus 5% stamp duty minus agent fee of 2% will land you at a net profit of 13%, which is a decent profit that most people will be looking at. During the TOP, if assuming most people bought at $2,200 per square foot from the developer, you will see everyone trying to sell at a 20% profit, and it's quite common. So 2200 times 1.2 is $2,640 per square foot. And let me give you some example. For Jadescape, during the launch period, it was selling at an average PSF of $1,675 per square foot. Fast forward year 2022, when it hits his TOP, that time people are asking for $2,000 per square foot. They're also transacting at $1,940 per square foot. So it's about 20% profit. Let's take a look at other location. You tell me, Marcus, maybe that location different. So let's take a look. Over here, you have Daintree Residences, likewise TOP in year 2022. During the launch period, transaction was at about $1,705 per square foot. During TOP in year 2022, people were asking for $1,900 and plus, close to $2,000 per square foot over here. Again, it's about a 20% profit margin. Last but not least, let's take one more example. Today we go to Park Esta is at Paya Lebar area, TOP between 2022 to 2023. Looking at the price performance once again, during the launch they were selling about an average of $1,700 per square foot. During the TOP, everyone was selling about $2,000 per square foot. And what do we call this? It's basically the TOP surge, whereby the investors, when they purchase the property, they will only wish to sell if, let's say, they are able to make at least a 20% profit from their purchase price. So after understanding the property life cycle, a quick recap is that during the resale phase after the CSC, usually the price will stagnate, go up if the economy is doing well, or go down if the economy is suffering, if the economy is going through an economic crisis. And looking at this, right, let's compare the resale versus new launch. And for this case, right, we try not to use the resale versus new launch, because when you're talking about resale, there's a whole basket of all the very, very old properties. A better gauge is to use the subsale, whereby it just collected keys, versus the brand new property that requires another 4 years before you collect keys. I feel it's more like an apple-to-apple comparison when you're using a new car versus a new car rather than a new car versus a COE car. And looking at the previous history, right, generally you will see about a 20% difference, a price gap of 20% between the subsale and the new launch market. And why is that so? Because if the subsale property is already at the same price of a new launch, right, why don't you just go and buy the new launch? And the reason why is very simple. If you look back at the property life cycle, today if you are buying in during the TOP period at $2,600 per square foot, when your neighbors have all purchased at about $2,100 per square foot, the question is, right, how much are you able to sell in future? If you're aiming to go for a 20% profit margin, you will need to go to $3,000 per square foot. But all your neighbors that purchased at $2,100 per square foot, they are even able to sell at $2,005, $2,006, or even lower than the price that you have purchased, which actually exposes us today as the resale buyer risk, whereby your neighbors can be selling lower than your pricing. And that's why people have the choice to go for a new, if let's say the subsale pricing is pretty similar, does it make sense to you? Now, after understanding what is a subsale and a new launch and how the prices usually differ, let's take a look at what is currently in the market today. And the purpose of this video is to tell you what you should be doing. Looking at some of the project over here is very interesting because you're able to see Hill Heaven and Midwood at a PSF difference of less than $100 per square foot. So Hill Heaven currently is selling at an average of $2,080 per square foot, whereas Midwood is at $2,049 PSF. And if you look at the difference, right, is it very substantial? No, because today Hill Heaven will be completed in the year 2027, whereas Midwood is year 2023. And if you increase 4% of the pricing, if you have to top up the lease of Midwood to be equivalent of Hill Heaven, right, you'll be looking at price differential of less than $50 per square foot. And earlier on, if you track back to the property life cycle, yes, you're still buying a bit higher. However, with a $50 per square foot premium, right, it actually mitigates the risk of being the second owner, which whereby you are paying the first owner a 20% profit. Does it make sense to you? That means you're paying additional $50 per square foot to buy insurance. Next, one more example. Let's compare the recent integrated developments that was launched and also completed. So this is Sengkang Grand Residences. Currently, for the past 1 year, the average per square foot that was traded above $2,000 per square foot. And we look at the recent transaction of similar brand new properties, that means still direct from developers, whereby everybody enter at the same price, is transacted about $2,100 per square foot. So we are talking about a difference between a subsale versus a resale versus a new launch at about a 5% gap. Today, with a price gap between a subsale brand new property completed at $2,000 per square foot versus a 5% differential, $2,100 per square foot direct from developer, whereby you mitigate the risk of being a resale buyer, does it make sense to you? Meaning you need to sacrifice 5% of the square footage because the PSF is a little bit higher in order to mitigate the risk. I'm not sure about you, but for me, that is definitely something that I think I will do. Why? Because buying a property, nobody can guarantee whether this property can make money or don't make money. However, today, can we assess the risk? Whether if you are buying in where everybody purchased at the same price, is it safer than buying into a property where all your neighbors actually are able to sell lower? So all in all, to close this segment, basically I'm saying, if I were you, I definitely would go for the new launch today, given today there's such a small gap between the subsale and the new launch. Now that I tell you what you should be doing, buying a new launch makes more sense today if you are going to the OCR area. And because the video is getting too long, if you wish to know what are the good deals out there, what are the unit types in different projects that you should be zooming into for the new launch, right? This is my number. Drop me a WhatsApp or give me a call. I'll be happy to share with you my point of view based on your scenario. And as usual, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notification bell because we post weekly real estate videos like this. And with that, hope you learned something today. Thanks for watching to the end and see you at the next one.